So for today's lecture, there are no lecture slides. Today's going to be examples showing you how to set up your ZenHub, etc. And I'm going to do a live walkthrough through the whole lecture. This might not fill up all of lecture, so I will interact with chat a little bit more. If for those any 116 students still hanging out, you'll notice the big change in pace. 116 lecture was light speed. This lecture is going to be a bit slower and a bit more explanation and a bit more interaction. So just letting you know up front. Strong reminder, your deadline to form your teams, submit your initial project idea, as well as your conflict resolution, your link to your GitHub repo, your link to your ZenHub Scrum board. Everything is due in a brief description of your project. All of that's due tomorrow night. There's quite a bit of I don't want to say confusion or whatever, but there's quite a bit of students who seem like they're not in groups. And there are some students who are not in groups and nobody in their recitation is responding. So if you're in one of those recitations, first of all, if you don't have a group yet, get on Slack right now, join the channel for your recitation section and type in there, yo, not in a group, who's forming a group? I need to be in a group. Let's form a group right now, and get those groups together. If nobody's responding in those channels, either there are 5 students, or rather 4 students who are just sitting around not responding and not doing what they're supposed to do, or we have groups of 4 or some weird situation going on. Whatever it is, figure it out by tomorrow. Ideally today, even right now. If you got to do it during lecture, get that done. That's the most important thing, is getting on a team. Even if you form a team right now, you have like a day and a half, a little less than a day and a half, to agree on your project idea. That is not a lot of time. And Friday is going to be our first lecture activity, and it is a group activity, is in writing user stories. You're going to be asked to write, I believe it's going to be at least 7 user stories for your project. Meaningful, nice user stories that your project managers next week are going to look over. Once this deadline passes, I'm going to sort out all the teams, figure out who's not on a team, and resolve all those issues before Friday's lecture, so you can all have your teams to be able to do that activity. I'm also going to give the teams to 404. You're going to be contacted by your project manager for the first time. And I asked Dr. Hertz about this. It won't necessarily be Zoom. He's leaving the actual logistics and the methods up to the project managers. So if they want to use WebEx or some other platform, that's up to them. So it might not necessarily be a Zoom link, but your project managers will contact you. In recitation on week 3, you will be meeting with your project manager through whatever method they sent you. Go meet with them using that method. They're going to talk to each team during your recitation time. The activities I'm not going to do Zoom. I mean, we'll see how the first activity goes. I might do Zoom with breakout rooms for the lecture activities. For the first one, I'm going to show up on Twitch and just kind of chat. Maybe I'll just sign off early, and I'll leave it to you to create your own Zoom meetings and schedule that with your team. And ideally do it during lecture when we're supposed to be doing them, when we would be doing the activities if we were live. Do it during lecture, have a Zoom meeting, and then if you have questions, you can hop over to me, or maybe I'll just be live on Slack. If that doesn't seem to be working out well, I might create a Zoom meeting with breakout rooms. But at this stage of the game, being seniors, I'd much rather let you have that responsibility and figure out the logistics yourself. And another reason for that is if one of your teammates can't really make the lecture time, or maybe they're in a different time zone where it's 3 a.m., maybe you want to do the activities at a different time. I'm not gonna disallow that. So whatever logistics your team comes up with, but everybody on the team does have to submit each activity, even when they're team activities, and there will be individual activities as well. Everybody does have to submit, just so I know everybody is on the same page and agrees to that submission, that you didn't just slap your teammate's name on the thing, that they are actually aware of it. Yeah, WebEx. I hope they don't actually use WebEx, but I hope they all just use Zoom. I think Zoom is pretty nice. Yeah, or Discord, if they want to use Discord. If they want to come to our Slack channel, invite them to the Slack channel too. I think we get... Actually, I think you have to pay for voice chat on there. But regardless, that's what's up. That's what's coming up. Just make sure you're filling out this form. Read through all this. Get to the GitHub classroom. Join the class. Create your ZenHub board. That's the tutorial I'm going to walk through today in creating some user stories and tasks. Choose a team name, something fun, preferably. All your teammates. 6, only if you have to for your recitation. Some recitations have 21 students enrolled. If you're in that recitation, make sure you're communicating with all 21 students because there can only be one team of 6. So make sure that's all sorted out. It does still say 116. Did I not click update? I might have neglected to click update on that. I typed in 442, but I don't think I hit enter. Your GitHub URL, your ZenHub Scrum board URL, whether you need a web server or database, these can change later in the semester, so don't stress on this too much. Web server, you should know by now whether you need or not. Database server, maybe it's more questionable, but you should. If you have a web server, you probably need a database too. Just in general. Your dispute resolution. You do have to have some sort of dispute resolution on paper, and this can't be, it's mentioned up here, it can't be a simple majority vote. You do have to have something a little more meaningful, and it's not like I'm going to take points off if it's not, but it should be something fun. It should be something oh no, the stand twice. I'm missing a reference on that, but it should be something fun. This is going to be, so first of all, if you're having if you have a team that doesn't have any conflict, that's actually a warning sign. A team that doesn't have conflict typically means that no one on your team really cares about the project, that you're just kind of floating through and trying to do whatever. You should have some conflict. It doesn't have to always be really... It doesn't have to be hostile conflict. That's the word I'm looking for. It doesn't have to be hostile conflict, but there will be times where you don't agree on what language to choose, what database to use, etc., what web framework to use. There will be disagreements like that, and there should be. If everybody's just going with the wind, nobody really cares. But when you enact this conflict resolution, the dispute resolution, is going to be at times where tensions are high. Disputes are obviously happening because you're trying to resolve them, but tension will be high, stress will be high. If you're doing something silly and fun, it makes it a lot, it kind of takes the edge off the conflict. It gets people in a better mood. If you're playing a game to resolve this, for example, one example from a few years back that Matt Hertz likes to bring up, which is probably the best conflict resolution, is they would have a Nerf gun war. That was their conflict resolution. Whoever got hit last, that's who wins the dispute, and they get the final say on what's going on. And by the time you're done having a Nerf gun war, you're not thinking about how mad you were at your teammate, 5 minutes ago. So I recommend you take this seriously and have some good dispute resolution. Something that's going to ease the tension at these moments when the tension is at its highest. Nerf gun war is probably a bad example, being that we're remote, but you get the idea. To have something interesting, something fun, rock, paper, scissors, even something. Then describe who your typical users are and how they're going to use your project. The typical users and the typical uses. Can we just allow teams of 4 to 6? No. Yeah, things changed this semester. The problem is I didn't know the enrollment was going to be 180. That's the issue here. With enrollment of 180, things get a lot trickier. So I prefer groups of 3 to 4. I think that's what's most effective. But in a college course, at least, that's just not not feasible with 160 students. So I don't like this either. It's something we just got to deal with, but groups of 5. I'm already having trouble getting recitations to form groups of 5. If I say you're allowed to have 4 to 6, but negotiate with your other fellow recitation mates, it's going to be so much more of a mess than it already is. Your recitation probably already has 5 students who haven't even posted a message yet. And I'm supposed to expect you to negotiate with them teams of 4 to 6. Okay, we're going to have 4, so you have 6. No, it's not going to happen. Sorry, it's not ideal, I know, but it's what we got. We all have to deal with. I wanted 3 to 4, but 3 to 4 with 180 students, that's a lot of teams. That is a lot. Lakers or Rockets. I'm not into basketball. I can't give you an opinion. Okay, so with that out of the way, which I end up talking about first, let's get into some. I got to resize things just a little bit. I'm still in 116 setup. Oh man, I forgot OBS wasn't letting me resize this anymore. Can I just drag this? No. All right. So I want to get to my classroom. No, I have to resize this. Sorry, bear with me a second. There we go. Now we're in business. Okay. So, sorry, I know none of you could see what was happening there, but I had to just rearrange my setup here, my command center. So, when I get to this classroom, what I want to do is set up a repo. I want to set up a repo and set up ZenHub and get the structure that we need for this course. So one thing I'll say right up front is there will be a bit of standardization in the course. You saw it just now from the groups having to be size 5. There were a few messages in chat, not in chat, but on Slack, of do we have to have those exact labels and stuff. Unfortunately, this is the reality that we're facing. There is going to be a lot of standardization in this course, especially since we're working alongside 404. With so many people involved, we had the project managers, myself, Dr. Hertz, 180 of you, and I forget how many project managers there are. I don't think I checked the enrollment yet, actually, this semester. And all the project managers, there are a lot of people involved. The more standardization we have, it just makes things easier for everybody. If I'm talking to a project manager, we need to be speaking the same language, and we do that through standardization. It's something that we should be used to in the computer field, in software engineering. Standardization is just, you define an interface and inherit that interface. You're all familiar with that concept. It extends to project management as well. The more things we standardize, just the easier it is for everybody to be on the same page. Because if I say something in class and the project manager knows the same thing, but it's by a different name, when you try to talk to your project manager, you'll be like, well, Jesse said this, and you're saying that you're actually saying the same thing. But if we standardize that, we can get rid of a lot of those issues. So there will be standardization that will ring true throughout this example, throughout all this setup that we have. So when I go to this, you're either going to find the team that you are part of and join that team. Some of you have teams set up, but your teammates haven't joined. Make sure your teammates are joining the team and joining that project. Yeah, exactly. And if I had a team of 4, if you formed a team of 4, you'd be expected to do the same work. That's a good point there. And then sometimes soon, so when I used to allow 3 to 5, and the teams with 3, at some point in the semester, it was almost a guarantee that they would come to me at some point and say, but we shouldn't have to do as much because we're only a team of 3. Well, that was your choice. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, but you told me you were going to build this project and now you didn't, and I don't know. I don't want to get into that kind of stuff though. But anyway, find your team. There are 2 pages here. So if you're one of the first teams, actually those ones are all filled up. And then test team was mine that I was just playing around with on my other account. I'm going to create a new team. Team can't be blank. Clicking on the wrong spot. There we go. I was clicking on OBS. I have to name it. That would help to name my team. I'm going to name it Question Bot, because why not? And it's going to do some good stuff for me. So if you're the first one, you're the person on the team who's creating the team, you know, give it a name, create it, and then have your teammates join. Some of these, where there's a team with just one student, I would guess that, you know, you have 2 teams for the same team, and that's just make sure you're all on the same team. And then I get my repo. Nothing here yet. It gives you instructions to create an initial repo. I recommend, if you don't want to mess with the command line, go into an IDE and create the repo. I can clone this, like for example, I could pull up IntelliJ, clone this repo, make some changes, push it, and then I can have stuff here. We're not going to talk about the repo itself today. We're going to talk about managing tasks. But I do have my repo. But I do have my repo available. So one thing that you'll notice, if you go to the issues, I'm not going to create a new issue yet because I'm going to do that in ZenHub. But if I go to the labels, I already have the labels for this course, and it is technically different than what I said on Slack. There's a space, sprint, and then a space 1. Sprint 2, Sprint 3, Sprint 4, task, and user story are the labels, the 6 labels that we're going to use throughout this semester. So whenever you create a user story, make sure it's labeled user story, tasks are tasks, and then any sprint that it's affiliated with. So your user stories at first are just labeled user story. If you're at the beginning of Sprint 2, you have the Sprint 2 meeting, and you decide which user stories are going to be part of Sprint 2, then you'll add the Sprint 2 label to those user stories, break those stories into tasks, and then label those tasks as Sprint 2 as well. So when you create a repo, these will create automatically. If you were one of the first 3 or 4 teams to create your repos, I didn't have this set up yet, and it doesn't push those changes to existing repos. But these are your tags. For those of you, the first few repos that were created before this was set up, you'll have to manually create these labels. These are the ones your project managers will expect, Dr. Hertz will expect, I'll expect. This is how we're going to be able to organize all these 36 projects that we're going to have. This is going to help us organize everything that's supposed to happen there and help us communicate with the project managers about the tasks. All right, with that, I have my repo set up. I want to go to ZenHub. I'll go right to, you know what, let me do it from the form. It's the same link, I guess. But now I'm going to go to ZenHub. I'm going to log in with my, it didn't even ask me, but because I've logged in before. But I'm going to log in with my GitHub account. So you can create a separate login, a separate user account. Actually, does it even allow that? Maybe it doesn't even. I didn't try it. But you should log in with your GitHub account. So then ZenHub links all of your GitHub repos and all your code and your GitHub username. It's going to link that to ZenHub. So anything you do on ZenHub will appear on your GitHub repo. So let me switch workspaces here. So I already have this set up. So I have just the test repo set up. I'm going to switch workspaces, and I could switch to any of your workspaces that are existing. I'm not sure, maybe someone can let me know if you can see all of the other ZenHub boards because you're part of the same organization, or if I can only because I own the organization. But if none of these are here, that's fine. I mean, you don't need to look at anybody else's Scrum board anyway. But what I'm going to do is create a new workspace, and this is what you'll do. Workspace, I'm going to do Slackbot for questions, I guess. I'm going to name it whatever I want. What am I doing? TwitchBot. For questions. And I'm going to add my repo to that. When I click add, it's going to give me a list of all the projects. Again, I'm not sure what you see when you click this, if you see all of the projects or not. I would assume you do. But if you don't see anything, click this button down here, and you should see the UB CSE organization. And click on that. Make sure you're not on your username, because that'll show all your private repos. But go to UBCSE. If that option doesn't show up, you can... I forget exactly how, but you can manually type in your repo. Maybe that's actually why I cut it in my clipboard. If you it's not going to search for me. But let me look through here. Course project. Question bot. Add. I only want one repo next, and that's going to set up my board for me. So I have my board set up at this point. Why did it kill my sidebar? Should have a sidebar there. I mean, I don't want it. I don't need it, but it's weird that it's gone. So at this point, I got my link and go to the form. And for tomorrow's deadline, I can be done with my board. But we want to do more than that. We want to get ready for Sprint 1. Sprint 1 really, technically started already. So I want to get this set up the way I need it set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at the grading rubric for sprints. And one of these categories is Scrum Board Organization. I have to have exactly these pipelines in my Scrum board. Backlog, ready, in progress, testing, and closed. These are different than the default pipelines in ZenHub. So I have to change these to get to the standardization of the course, so the project manager knows what you're doing. So for new issues, I'm actually just going to rename this one. I'm going to do the all caps like it is in the thing. I don't think if you don't have all caps, I'd be surprised if your project manager cares. As long as they can understand what it is. But just because I have backlog already there. And I'm going to save that. So if I create a new issue in GitHub, it's going to appear right here. I'm going to delete the backlog that was given. Can I delete this? Yeah, I can't delete that one. So I do have to change the name of that. I'm going to delete the rest of these. Can I delete done too? No, it does. And I'm going to get the rest of my pipelines here. Backlog. Ready. I am going to rename this because that all caps is bugging me. Backlog. Ready. In progress already exists. Testing. And closed. Closed is already taken. Cancel that. I was wondering how it did that, and that's exactly how. Oh, that's why my sidebar went away, because I wasn't in there yet. And you can just drag these around, which I was trying to do, but apparently I was in some special initial setup page. So you can organize these however you want. For our purposes, it's going to be backlog, ready, testing, in progress, and closed. These are out of order. So whenever you create a user story, you're going to add that to your backlog, and I'm going to do that right now. Actually, I'll walk through all these first. Once you have a task in your backlog that is going to be completed, you have your beginning of sprint meeting. When you have that beginning of sprint meeting, you'll move all those stories over to ready, and any tasks associated with those stories over to ready. And then once you are ready to take on one of those tasks, you'll put it in the in progress column to make sure that everybody on your team knows that you're working on it, so you don't duplicate work. Assign it to yourself. Once you complete it and test it, you're going to put it in, or once you complete it, you'll put it in testing. Once you tested it and you're confident it works, you have a team meeting. The team decides if that issue is going to be closed or not. You only put it in closed. You only close an issue at the team meetings or right after, once your team agrees that that is complete, it's thoroughly tested, everything's fine, and your project manager's happy with it. The reason I already had the backlog, but I created this. Actually, will it let me delete? Yeah. So the reason I renamed that one, like this one, I believe I can just delete. Oh, no, I can't. But new stories are put in the ready pipeline, but we're calling it backlog. So I just wanted to rename the ready to backlog instead of using the existing backlog. Good on time. Let me catch up on some chat. The first activity is Friday. You didn't miss an activity today. Today I'm going through how to set up your stuff, your repo and ZenHub. You can see all others. Good. That's good to know. Yeah, thanks, Grath. I should have looked over at that. I was in the setup phase. That's why the interface was different. And I'm going to go through. So I'm going to create some user stories. So I'm going to create a new issue. So the first thing you'll do, you're not going to do any tasks unless they're associated with a user story. I'm going to create a user story. I'm going to label it. How long does it take to load this? Come on. I'm going to label it user story. And this, I have the best intentions of actually building this, but if not, this is just for example, I want to create a chatbot for Twitch where you can ask questions, have those questions appear on stream, and then be able to vote on questions. So the most important prevalent questions or comments are very visible to me, and I can address them even when I'm in the middle of lecture, in the middle of explaining something. The chat, sometimes, not so much in 442, but in 116, gets cluttered with a lot of irrelevant conversation, a lot of side talk. I try to control it, but, it happens. So if the actual questions that need my attention, instead of just adding me and highlighting your message like that, getting your message to show up on stream, or at least in a way where I can see it, where it has more visibility to me. That's what this project can eventually be. So let's write some user stories for this. I have them pre-written, just so I didn't. If I have them pre-written, I'll just cut and paste them anyway. I already told you I have a cheat sheet. Why not just go all out? So here's my first user story. As a student watching, let's change this to A, watching a live lecture stream, I want my question to have high visibility so they don't get lost in the rest of chat. So I have a specific user, a student who's currently watching the live stream. So to distinguish between a student who only watches the YouTube recordings, a student watching the live stream takes this defined action. I want to ask a question. I want to ask questions with high visibility. Reword this a little bit. I want to ask questions with high visibility so they don't get lost in the rest of the chat. So I want some way to ask a highly visible question as opposed to a regular chat message. That's the action that the user is taking, and the testable outcome so they don't get lost in the rest of the chat. So this, so my acceptance test for this, let me just submit it like that for now. And then as a comment, my acceptance test. And this is going to be a step-by-step process to be able to verify if this story is done. So this is kind of the vision. This is kind of what we want. But what does it mean for this to actually be done? So first, during a live lecture, type question text in chat. Verify that someday I'll learn how to type without looking at the keyboard. It's something I should. Some you're lucky. They taught me cursive in high school. Like I need that. At least they teach you typing now. Verify that question text appears on stream. Aside from as a chat message. So we should be able to verify that the question text that you ask actually shows up on stream somewhere other than just in the chat where you put it. Spam, get heart loss. Yeah, exactly. So the way I'm writing it up, it'll be abused, but that'll be separate user stories. So this is a user story just for the core functionality. And then we'll have more user stories later that as an instructor, I don't want to get spammed so I can focus on the lecture and finish what I'm supposed to in 50 minutes. So that'll be like another user story later. Question test. It doesn't exist yet. And these, I'm just using whatever syntax. The arrows wouldn't be there. It would just be exclamation point question, one space, and then whatever text after that is your question. So this would be my acceptance test. A student during live lecture uses the chatbot command to ask a question, and that question should appear somewhere on stream. And if it gets spammed, maybe I have to have it where only I can see it, where it's not actually on stream, because I'll get all kinds of ridiculous spam. So there's my acceptance test for this. Let me comment that. So I have my first user story and acceptance test to go along with it. And if I go to my repository, I'll see that I have an issue in that user story. It's there. This all syncs up with GitHub. All this information is there. You can put the acceptance tests as the actual... maybe that is the way Dr. Hertz did it. I thought he did it as a follow-up comment, but this does say commented. So that's where I'll put my acceptance tests from now on. It's where I would have put it anyway, but I thought that's what he did in this. So I have my acceptance tests and my user story. Cool. Let's write one more. Again, I'm going to use my cheat sheet. The next, quite possibly more useful feature. As a student watching a live lecture, I want to vote on asked questions so I can let the instructor spell it properly. So I can let the instructor know whether I also have the same question or not. Granted, I could word that better. It's whatever. But I want to be able to vote on questions. So if there's a question that half the class has, I want to know that, and the students want that to be seen. Or if I'm doing something silly and everybody's typing in chat the same thing that says, hey, Jesse, you're doing something really dumb, I want to be able to know that and have that rise to the top and get the most visibility immediately. In 1.16 today, I was in IntelliJ, but I was capturing the window. And whenever I had a pop-up or a menu that I was using in IntelliJ, it wouldn't show up on the stream. And I forgot about that. I knew that from last semester, but I forgot. So they're all spamming me like, hey, Jesse, what the hell? But I'm just absorbed in the demo that I'm giving that I missed it all. I want something like that to hit my radar immediately so I can fix it because it's detrimental to the stream. So, acceptance test. After a question with ID number, some ID number is visible on stream. Visible. So with a question with ID number visible on stream, type upvote number in chat, verify that the question on stream gained a vote. Plural. Controversial maybe, but oops. Controversial maybe, but let's add downvotes too. And verify that it lost a vote. So we have two acceptance tests for this one, upvotes and downvotes, to be able to get that that feature, that functionality, verify that that functionality exists. So notice how the user story doesn't really say much about that. It just says the students want to vote on questions to let the instructor know if they have the same question or not. The acceptance test is a little bit more detailed of what does this feature actually mean once it's done. Well, it means we can upvote and downvote with these chat commands on questions with particular numbers, and that some way the visible question on stream should indicate some way the number of upvotes and downvotes. The way that's indicated still isn't specified. That's up to the developer. If the end user cared, if the customer cares, then they'll want it in the user story or in the acceptance test. They'll read your acceptance test and be like, wait, I want an actual number, or I want the number of upvotes and downvotes displayed, or I just want the questions to be sorted by the number of upvotes minus downvotes without displaying the actual numbers to end users. There could be a lot of ways to implement this. If the user cares, that's going to go in the acceptance test. I'm going to leave it vague for now. They have the presenter view in IntelliJ, but it's a little painful to use. I've used it before, but it only shows your editor. It doesn't show the console. It still doesn't show the menus. So whenever I use that, I tend to go in and out of presenter view, and there's a bit of lag. Like, it takes a little bit to enter and exit presenter view. So I constantly have these few second just holdups where I'm doing nothing, and that adds up over the lecture. Inject JavaScript into Jesse's browser. Yeah. All right. Jira better than ZenHub? Yeah, it's debatable. Jira's nice. You also have to pay for it. I believe we can get educational accounts with Jira, but yeah, Jira's nice. I've used it before. So let's create this issue, this user story, and I wanted to... Nope, I don't. Please double check it. But it worked. But it didn't. You're killing me here. But it did. But it didn't. It exists, but it doesn't. And there it is. Okay. So, whatever. So I have a few... I don't know what happened there. But it had a few... we have a few user stories. I would, of course, write more. I want a couple. I would like one from the instructor point of view. As an instructor, the one I mentioned earlier, as an instructor, I want to be able to review. I'd say this would be my user story. As an instructor, I want to be able to review asked questions and approve them before they go on stream, so I don't have spam displayed to everybody watching the stream, or else everybody's just gonna type the dumbest stuff, the things that always happen whenever I do that. Making sure I'm not missing anything, because I think we're ready for the next thing. So I sat down with my team. I have my sprint 1 meeting. Everybody's in agreement with what user stories we're going to work on, and we decide that we're going to work on this story. Of course, you should have at least 7 stories after Friday, and then move a couple of them over to ready. I'm just going to move one of them right now. I'm going to say we're going to work on this issue right here, this user story. So first thing, I'm going to go into labels and add sprint 1 to the labels. So now this is still a user story, but I'm labeling it sprint 1. And I'm going to create some new issues here. I'm going to label them sprint 1. And I'm going to break that one story into some smaller tasks that I need to complete. I'm going to use my cheat sheet a little bit here, so I'm not thinking of these on the fly. I'm going to need deploy database to store questions. Build and deploy a database server that will store question text and text. Just question text right now because we're not building the rest of it. I was going to say text, the ID number, and the votes, but part of this story, the voting isn't part of this story, so we don't even need ID yet. We just need question text stored in the database. So I'm going to submit that issue. I'm going to wait for ZenHub to think about it for a little bit. I'm going to create another issue. Set up a web API for questions. Build an API with a post endpoint to accept and store questions. Label sprint 1. Do I do all these? This is a good one, actually. I want to emphasize this one. Research Twitch chat API. Study the API and learn how to use needed for this app. Label sprint 1. Submit. I won't create all these for the sake of time. My last two were develop the chatbot to monitor chat and send questions to the API, and develop a GUI that's going to display the things. I don't want to exit. Oh, I clicked close the issue, didn't I? Refresh. I should have all these issues, and they're all going to be... It has the label sprint 1. It just doesn't show up there. I gotta refresh again. Now, once I take one of these tasks and put it in progress, say I'm going to start working on this research Twitch chat API. I want to highlight this one. This is a legitimate task. I can't, it's one of my pet peeves, I guess, when a student hasn't done anything up until some certain point in the semester, and they'll contact me and say they haven't done anything because they don't know how to use the tools that the team's using or whatever. And they've been spending the entire half of a semester researching things. I mean, that can be acceptable if you're actually researching it, but you have to have that documented. Actually add that as a task. That takes time to research things. If you're learning how to use Django, create a task for that, assign it to yourself, and make sure that time is recorded so everyone knows, and especially your project manager and myself, know what you actually did during that sprint. If you spent sprint 1 researching something and then only produced a little bit of code, make sure that's reflected in your tasks. So anyway, I'm going to assign this to myself. And at this point, I want to add my testing. Oh, I actually have to check something real quick. Okay. Sorry about that. I asked Dr. Hertz a question about this earlier, and I want to make sure I got his answer before I mislead you. So at this point, I'm going to create the task test for this. How am I going to verify that this task is complete? And this, of course, won't have any unit tests attached to it. It's just me researching the Twitch chat API. But I still have to have some testing. Every task has to have testing. So what I'm going to deliver as the task test is build in a chat echo bot that reads all the chat of a channel and displays it and outputs each message in the terminal let's be proper here, in standard out. So I just want something that listens to a stream, listens to all the chat, and just reads everything and prints it to standard out. Just a quick proof of concept app that I can build that proves that I actually researched how this API works and that I can build something that works on that. So that's going to be my test. I go to the meeting. So once I move this into testing and I go to my team meeting, I'm going to show off that little test thing, that test program that I built, go to some stream and have it just echo out the messages. If I got to create my own Twitch channel to do that, and then have my teammates go live and have my teammates chat during it to show off what that is, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put it in testing during the meeting. I'm going to show off that testing, prove that it works. The team's going to say, wow, Jesse, that was amazing. You really kicked that task's ass. Then we're going to move it over to closed, and then that's going to close this issue in GitHub. If I go back to my issues, we should see all the issues that I created. And if I go to closed, that task is automatically closed. You won't have to use this interface at all. If you don't want to, you can do everything in ZenHub, and I'd actually recommend that since you can see everything. And it was assigned to me. I can see the comments and see the acceptance tests. All the documentation is there. I'd recommend just staying in ZenHub. But I don't want that to be closed. I'm going to put it back in progress because that's the state of this actual software right now. Does that not unclose it for me? I would expect ZenHub to reopen that for me. You can assign multiple. I can assign multiple. Say I want Professor Hertz to do this as well. I can assign him to it as well. You can have multiple people. I'd recommend having one person per task, unless you know that you're going to get along. Just one person per task. Because two people on a task inevitably creates the issue of who actually did this. Did you actually split it 50-50? How does your project manager know who did the work? And if you're the one who did the work and the other person assigned to it didn't, that's just asking for trouble for you. So I guess moving that out of closed didn't reopen it. So that is one thing. If you accidentally move something to closed that shouldn't be closed, You do have to go to the GitHub to reopen, apparently. Today I learned. You would never actually do that. I was just doing it for example. So yeah, if you have good peer programming and like you can do that well, by all means do it. But this is, for most of you, this is probably the first time you've worked on a big piece of software in a team in a really open-ended objective like this. I wouldn't expect any of you to be good at peer programming. But if you are, maybe you've done it on an internship and also somebody else in your team has done it in an internship and you're both interested in the project and you know it's going to work well, give it a try. The worst thing that's going to happen is it won't work and you'll learn a good lesson, which is why we're all here. So why not? That's the one nice thing about this class, actually. There's a lot of nice things about this class, but that's one nice thing is if you don't listen to me, you're just going to feel the pain of it in your project, in your team later. And if I was wrong, you don't feel the pain and you still learn something. Either way, you're learning.